Okay. Morning, everybody. I'm Philip Smith, as Todd was saying. Basically, this is just a short presentation on a document that I've been working with Rob Evans from ULCC and Mike Hughes from Lynx. And it all really started off from the Lynx's failed experiment to try and encourage their membership, or at least the Lynx membership, to try and encourage themselves to aggregate their announcements onto the actual exchange point. So while that all failed, and really at the right meeting before last, we got our heads together and thought, well, let's try and come up with some document that started off from the Lynx work, and maybe we can do this as a general industry recommendation thing. So the current draft is pretty much in the routing working group final discussion stages. I presented on this last week at the RIPE meeting in Amsterdam. I've put the URL up there. I mean, obviously I'm going to go through this too quickly for you to grab the document, but I would like to encourage you all to grab it, have a read of it, please give us feedback and so forth, if there's anything's missing, anything's, well, that shouldn't be there, and so forth. We'd really appreciate it. I'll just spend a couple of minutes going through what the document covers. It takes a look at the history of aggregation, causes of deaggregation, impacts in the global routing system, some of the available solutions, which really do exist, and some of the recommendations that we're proposing for ISPs. So in the history part of the document, we basically talk a little bit about the migration from classful to the classless routing system, the efforts to clean up the 192/8 space, which I think were pretty successful. The CIDR report, which Tony Bates started all those years ago, what that was trying to do to try and encourage people or assist people with their migration from the classful to classless system. And of course, it's well known, Jeff's current CIDR report and the website that goes with that, again, to try and encourage aggregation efforts. We'll also talk about the registry system and the provider aggregatable address space that has introduced. The claimed causes of deaggregation, we put some text around each one of those. These are some of the claims that I certainly have had. I've given loads and loads of BGP tutorials, not only in the NANOG forum, but elsewhere in many other network operations groups around the world. And part of those I talk about the deaggregation and why this is really not a wonderful idea. And of course I get all the reasons, the justifications, which include routing system security, reduction of DOS attacks and miscreant activities, commercial reasons, leakage of IBGP outside the local AS, which some people seem to think is a wonderful idea. Oh yes, traffic engineering for multi-homing causes all the deaggregation we see today. Well, as Jeff has probably talked about many times before, it's not only just that. And legacy assignments are also our favorite blame topic. All this deaggregation has impacts. It's got impacts in the router memory. Obviously, I work for a vendor. Vendors seem to be quite happy to sell lots of router memory to the ISPs. I used to work for an ISP before. I wasn't too happy about buying lots of memory from my favorite vendor. So that has a bit of an impact for service providers. Router processing power, people don't seem to think about that too much, but there is a fairly serious impact. Again, if you have a look at the impact of BGP updates and so forth on your router CPUs, it's noticeable. Routing system convergence, router memory problems, lack of processing power, all impacts convergence. People want the internet to be always available, always working all the time, and well, if your network's not converged, then well, it's not working perfectly for your customers. And of course, there's network performance. Solutions, well, the CIDR report has been around for years and years. Certainly when I was working at an ISP in my early days in the industry, the CIDR report hadn't quite appeared. It appeared, it was effective, people paid attention to it. We've gone through the years of the late 90s, early 2000s, where people said, hey, look, I'm #1 on the CIDR report, I'm the biggest ISP in the world, which wasn't quite the original idea. Of course, there's plenty of filtering available. We had the CIDR police activity in the late 90s, early 2000s, but again, the CIDR police kind of got beat up a fair bit, so they stopped. There are BGP features that have been introduced at the request of ISPs and industry in general, but not so many people are using them. It includes the no export community, no peer community, the AS path limit attribute, which Joe Adley and others are currently working through the system, not to mention lots and lots of provider-specific communities. So our recommendations, basically, we try and encourage people to announce the initial allocation as a single entity. It's not a case of, ooh, I got 32 Class Cs from Aram. Class Cs ceased to exist in 1994, so people should be announcing, for example, a /19 rather than individual pieces. Subsequent allocations should be aggregated if they are contiguous and bitwise aligned. If the registry does happen to give you a contiguous address block, for goodness sake, aggregate them. Prudent subdivision of aggregates for multi-homing is encouraged. You don't take your address block and chop it into /24s, as some people, and certainly in my part of the world in Asia, seem to like doing. They seem to believe that makes multi-homing work, which, well, of course, it doesn't. There are lots of BGP enhancements. Implement some of them. Go and encourage your favorite vendors to implement some of them. And, oh, by the way, this applies all to IPv6 as well, because multi-homing in v6 is pretty much the same as multi-homing in v4 at the moment. So the current status, we're looking for your feedback. Drop us email directly or join the routing working group mailing list at RIPE. It's currently in the final comment stage. If there are no more comments, this document will be published as a RIPE document and hopefully can be useful for recommendations for the industry. And that is it. Thank you.